Average Joe travels the California Inscape. Season 6, Body Double Trouble. Episode 1, Familiars on a Train. Story conceived and written by Penguin Pete Turpovich. Christmas decorations taken down by Dodge Zelko and Clyde Wrenn. Featuring the vocal stylings of This Is Signal, with Penguin Pete as Howie Hatecraft, and Asher Ephraim as Spanky. And so it happened that Anne, Spanky, Samantha, and I were aboard the California Zephyr, riding the morning line into the town of Ruby Peaks, the site of our next case. Anne had elected to bring Samantha in a cardboard cat carrier, plus her food dishes and toys, as if she were any ordinary cat that couldn't teleport around like a feline genie. But we would be staying at a hotel in Ruby Peaks for about a week, we estimated, and Samantha would still want to be fed and tended to. My fingers nervously flicked the business card in my hand with our client's contact point. One Howie Hatecraft, owner and operator of the Reaper's Row Cemetery and Funeral Home. The address was, conveniently, not very far from the very railroad tracks we would arrive on. This was about all we knew concerning this case. A referral business card slid across the bar by our Chatterskull Falls friend, Jack Hill. This Hatecraft fellow knew Jack and had hired us sight unseen for a pre-agreed amount on what we assumed would be a one-week winter getaway. The case was almost guaranteed to have a better start than the previous one. Jack Hill had passed us this offer while we were all still washing off the pumpkin guts from that horrible business in our previous case with the Fae, the pumpkin golems, the mind-warped orange-hooded cultists, and the... Spanky, what was that creature called again?
The cat?
The one that kidnapped me at the pumpkin farm.
The Wendigo.
Right, a Wendigo, which had robbed me of a week's time by messing with my temporal awareness while we conversed, over what I perceived as a single night. That was a fateful event for me, I'm told, because even though the adventure was long past, I somehow had not yet quite shaken its mental effects, and Anne had never quite stopped peeping at me suspiciously out of the corner of her eye. I would catch her looking at me strangely once in a while, and I knew what was eating her. Once I had been Wendigo touched, I might very well have long-term effects, possibly even gaining new powers of my own. Power to grab lucky strikes unpaid for would be a good one. Or I might be unknowingly hypnotized with an action that could trigger somewhere down the years. Or I might be marked in some way so that it could find me again. And so on. Who the heck knows what a cosmic-scale demigod of the forest wants? Anyway, Anne was prone to this kind of paranoia whenever her own magic powers were outmatched. Not having any magic powers of my own, I didn't give this element much thought. But suddenly, Spanky interrupted my inner monologue by voicing aloud exactly what I was just wondering.
And what's up with our great unmet nemesis, Mr. Rockseed? Or perhaps more in general, why do so many occult practitioners tend to get bats in their belfry?
Rockseed is powerful in the left-hand path. That basically means you have to trade favors with demons in exchange for power. For starters. Demons don't exactly accept travelers' checks, you see, but they value carnal experiences highly, if you can guess.
Don't make me picture it. Although with a succubus, and maybe that dashing Agent Cooper.
But even the goody two-shoes wizards sometimes get cuckoos in their nest. So what then?
On the right-hand path, it's even more stressful. You have to study like mad, chase down and verify every fact in 3 books before you can risk trying a spell. It's all about your work ethic. The strong of mind survive and hang on to their sanity. There's just so much to keep track of.
So, in other words, the same stresses that apply to 100 other things in life. I knew plenty of servicemen who just couldn't take the battlefield conditions and ended it for themselves right there. I never saw anybody shoot themselves to get out of reading a book, though.
There's some awful prose and mad ranting in the occult literature. You'd be surprised.
I was hoping we'd beat the snow.
Psst, Anne, 6 o'clock. A woman staring at you.
Oops, excuse me. Hey, Zelda! Good to see you again. What brings you here on the Zephyr?
Just visiting the folks for Christmas.
You weren't about to skip town on us then, eh?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
So it's still on?
Yeah. I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Oh, you know it. Listen, Zelda, I gotta get to my ride from my son-in-law. Toodaloo!
Toodles!
Now, wasn't that the queerest thing? Who in the Sliverin' Serpents was that?
I never saw her before in my life.
She called you Zelda. That's not even at the right end of the alphabet. But she acted like she knew you from right here in Ruby Peaks.
You know, it happens. She might need glasses. It's not like I dressed to stand out.
I knew this about Anne. She worked hard to craft an image. An image that she was just the secretary of our firm being me being Average Joe. And she dressed like any office typist and filing hack. She always wore the most popular season's colors, as long as they tended to plain woolen jackets and skirts, and tended toward the colors black and sometimes rather dark gray.
Wonder what It's Still On is about. It's like one of those cheap penny dreadfuls.
Oh, this Zelda person could have been her Sunday bridge partner for all we know. Hey, there's the hotel. It's right across the street from the train station, just like they said.
The Umpire Hotel. I want a room with a window not facing the sign.
Me too. I'd rather not try to sleep with that leering neon masher peeping at me.
I booked us rooms 3, 5, and 7. We want 3 together. I promise.
Those are all odd numbers. On this side. What a dump. What else is there?
This is the lowest rate in town I could find. The other place is too far away anyway, and remember,
I know. We pay our own per diem.
Anne and Spanky terminated their grumbles and we checked in. There was another reason I wanted an hotel close to the train station. In a town like Ruby Peaks, a tiny mining and logging town, the train is the best way to skip town fast. If this cemetery caper led to a vampire, as Anne and I suspected, that's the first thing the vampire would try to do once they got word about us. The first thing on my mind was meeting our new client and getting the day's briefing out of the way. I called for a cab ride through the desk clerk's phone, and with my jingling pocket full of Carson City Morgan dollars, I made sure that the desk clerk was well-tipped, well-acquainted, and advised that I would pay heavily for any information about any dodgy-looking people who seemed to be leaving town in an awful hurry. Almost anyone is happy to indulge in an eccentric belief in vampires, if you pay them. We scooted over to the Reaper's Rose Cemetery. As the cabbie made his way through the gates and up the path surrounded by headstones, I noted glumly that the snow had increased. The cemetery sprawled out in every direction from us, surrounded by a rusty iron fence and a creaking gate swinging ominously in the wind behind us. Mr. Howie Hatecraft met us at the funeral service building entrance and proved to be far less intimidating than if he had been named Howard Hatecraft. He did not speak until the cab was out of sight.
Are you the folks from 13 Nocturne Alley in Chatterskull Falls? I asked Jack Hill about you.
Yes, that's us. I'm told there's a problem here with,
Oh, we're trying to keep it hush, but we're missing bodies, not just the morgue either.
So Mr. Hill informs me. I'm Average Joe, and you also gotta know my assistants Ann and, Mr. McDonald.
Pleased to meet y'all. Please come in out of the snow.
So, how are the bodies disappearing?
We only got 2 so far, right out of the grave.
They broke out?
No, we exhumed them. The graves were neat as a pin, but the caskets were empty.
So no damage to the coffin? No one clawing their way out?
Nope, just like they were buried empty. Mr. Average, if you were thinking that this is going to involve some zombies or vampires or some such nonsense, I assure you this is sacred consecrated ground blessed by the local priest.
Pardon me, but do you recall how long ago that was?
Ma'am, since the cemetery has been on our hands the whole time?
How old is this establishment?
Well, the Indians had it first, so maybe hundreds of years. My great-granddaddy bought it off them in the 1760s. They were founding their first settlement here for a logging and timber stop on the way to California for the missionaries on their way out to convert the heathens.
Oh my, so this century might be cemeteries old, and last consecrated in the 1760s?
Well, it's not like holy water blessings expire, do they?
How often do you exhume these bodies?
Only when they're crusted. One of our tenants' widows wanted the body moved to their family plot in Connecticut. That was last Friday. So far, we're telling her our gravedigger's on vacation. Then a week ago, the police wanted a second look at a recent tenant in connection with some murder. They know we're missing the body, but agreed to keep that stalled out until we figure out what's going on.
That's it then. You dug up 2 clean coffins instead of the deceased.
Might wonder about grave robbers. You know, body snatchers.
I'm sorry there, little feller, but our grave robbers mostly don't fill in the dirt all neat with the coffin reburied. They'd be more of a dig and grab and dash type deal.
Okay. That sounds like we have our work cut out for us. We just got into town, so we'll be heading back to the hotel and return here first thing in the morning. We'll begin our investigations then.
Sure, but try not to make us have to excavate the whole cemetery. And stay wide of Mrs. Landry. She revisits her husband's grave often. She's well-to-do, and we don't need a lawsuit on our hands. That's the grave of H. Quinn Landry, the one that came up missing. That's 3rd row, right by the sitting angel.
We formalized our business contract 1 week at our prime rate, prepaid in advance. It was enough to cover our expenses as long as we worked on the cheap. We then strolled the premises for a bit while we waited for our return cab. The Reaper's Row Cemetery had a miserable character in the blowing snow, bitter and unwelcoming. Cabbing back to the hotel, we each returned to our adjoining rooms that were situated along the front row, right in the cheerful glare of the giant neon sign featuring an animated umpire calling a batter at home plate. The question occurred, who themes a hotel after baseball anyway? There wasn't even a baseball diamond around for miles that I could tell from the cab ride and arriving at the station. I ambled into Anne's room while she unpacked and set up Samantha's food and water. So far, we both were sticking with our top theory about the goings-on at the cemetery. It's always vampires, at least according to Anne. And trust me, she would know. Before leaving the home office, Anne had supplied me with a sandwich bag full of garlic and other items useful against the reluctantly undead, and had similarly supplied herself and Spanky. Anne pointed out that a powerful enough vampire can just shift shapedly, can shift their shape in such a way to escape from a closed coffin, presuming they can squeeze through, which I guess means they can presumably shift their shape into something small, crawly, and slimy. But our discussion was interrupted by Spanky calling from his room.
Ah, a snake!
We hoofed it over there. I got in first and saw, around the corner of his bed, a black flicker of oily motion. Spanky, a towel around his waist, had just been undressing for a bath. I felt Anne bump into me from behind, and my first thought was to call, "Samantha! Snake!" Samantha, claws first, leapt from behind the other side of Spanky's bed and pounced on the thing at the end of it. She tossed around for a second, and then all was quiet. When we got to the end of the bed and looked, Samantha was by herself on the carpet, turning around and blinking incredulously. There was no snake. Anne, did you see it?
Not clearly. Samantha was on it so fast. Joe, I swear, you rely on that cat more than I do.
But where in the name of St. Declan of Ardmore is the snake? It was huge and black. The bed's on a floor box, so it didn't go under there.
You know what? We're lights off Spanky. Maybe your tie draped over the chair there, and then the flashing neon sign outside lit it up. Made it look...
I'm pretty sure of what I saw. It had a wide hood, like a cobra.
A cobra? In Northern California?
We investigated high and low, while Samantha prowled around, growling. We never did entirely settle whether it was a trick of lighting and a stray leprechaun-y sock, or maybe we were all just tired and seeing things from a day's travel, or from going snowblind looking at white marble gravestones. The hotel was run down enough that I had no doubt that other kinds of vermin would be visiting. Anne declared it was time to invoke some security. She burned sage and drew symbols around the corners of each of our rooms while chanting her mystic mumbo-jumbo. I don't know if these things help, but I do know that this was the only way she would rest easy. We then settled down for the evening at this anonymous hotel in an anonymous town. For once, I slept secure in the knowledge that we were strangers here, and that none of our usual enemies back home knew where we were.